24 French colonial independence groups unify worldwide. Big news out there. We got China backing out of nuclear missile talks with the United States because of some issues along the way. Turbulent week. This week on Wall Street just got a lot worse as another hit is taken yesterday. Kimberly Cheadle, the director of Secret Service, decides to go where she's least wanted and gets called out on the carpet and flees in terror. Israel's Knesset has flat out rejected Palestinian independence, and so very much more on today's news update. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, but we are covering all the things out there in the news media that the news media doesn't want to cover. That they are sweeping under the rug or focusing in on their narratives, but we want to get you what's actually happening out there in the world. Let's start off with the financial markets. A lot of people concerned about that. Stocks have dive again for the second day as volatility is starting to pick up significantly. Is this the beginning of a pullback, or is this just a short-lived dip to buy? The dollar strengthened significantly as banks and high-wealth individuals sold assets and moved into cash. Stocks down, bonds down, treasuries down, gold and silver notably down as well. Crude is flat on the day, but the dollar has gotten a lot stronger. This was a lot of it driven by tech stocks dropping, whereas a lot of stocks actually held the same or were doing okay, but it's the big names, the Fab Five and all the top names up there that are really taking the biggest beating. Now, they're out there talking about cutting interest rates, and the Federal Reserve talking about cutting interest rates, and that usually corresponds with a big market drop. So that could be what we have on the docket right now. We have these interest rate cuts coming up soon. They're talking about getting these done before we go into election season, start cutting now. But the question is what's the problem? What's the fire that you're putting out? You don't cut interest rates unless you're concerned about something. So the question is, what are they so concerned about? And the market goes, wait a minute, if they're panicking, that means something's really bad. There's a real big problem if they're, using the fire hose on it, right? All right, let's move over to China. China is withdrawing its ambassadors and its negotiations from the non-nuclear proliferation talks. Why? Because the United States continues to give Taiwan lots and lots of money and lots of weapons. The U.S. is selling weapons, missiles, and I say selling, we're giving them a whole lot of stuff and they're buying some stuff. But we're giving them cash that they can only spend on our weapons. They have to buy their weapons from us. It's like grants. We do this for a lot of countries, and it's made to basically fund our military-industrial complex. It's really, really stupid, and yet we do it all the time. Anyway, so this is what we're doing for Taiwan. We're giving them money, and they have to spend it on us, and then we're trying to instigate them to buy more weapons and stuff. We're selling them weapons, missiles, warships, tanks, and radars, and all sorts of stuff, mines, even potentially, as well as providing training to their troops. China is upset enough that they will not continue talking about disarmament or blocking their ability to transfer weapons to other countries when the United States is transferring weapons to Taiwan. So they're like, no. We're not going to not talk about giving nuclear weapons as well as regular weapons to other countries when you're doing all of that and more. We also are seeing that China is out there ambitiously growing their nuclear weapons arsenal. Last year they had 410 nuclear warheads to declare. This year they now have 500. So they are increasing by 25% their nuclear missile capacity in 1 year. They're kind of growing pretty fast, right? All right, let's go over to entertainment. not entertainment just because of entertainment's sake, but Amazon's popular show, The Boys, dropped a new episode It is the season finale, which has a political assassination that sure is uncomfortably similar to what happened this past weekend. Amazon is stating that the TV show was shot in 2023, and it's completely coincidental. I think most people kind of get the fact that this was already filmed and all that kind of stuff like that. But I think it's disturbing to us how common these ideas and thoughts are to the political left. It's like they all think it, but there are only a few mentally ill people willing to carry it out. I mean, Kathy Griffin, remember her with the picture? Yeah, these people are sick. If they don't get their way, they start talking about this type of stuff. It just naturally flows that anybody who doesn't agree with them is the enemy, and whatever they do to the enemy is completely justifiable. And this is kind of where they go to, and it's sick. It's sick. I mean, we saw how many people out there were actually applauding or upset that it didn't go better for the bad guy, right? Speaking of, Kimberly Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, showed up at the Republican National Conference. Why in the... Wow, talk about not being able to read the room. She was swarmed by politicians and others demanding that she resign and asking her for accountability. Now, no one was physical or anything like that, but there were people who were animated and heated, demanding answers and demanding her resignation. She kind of retreated from that, didn't like the questions, didn't like the concern, and she's one of the main ones out there, very, very upset that people are questioning the qualifications and the competency of the female officers that were assigned to Donald Trump last weekend. Because, just because they have diversity means that they don't have to have any training. They don't actually have to know how to use their firearm. They don't need to know anything other than just being a woman. Notice how they were all white women, too. Anyway, is that too far? Was that too far? Why does it seem like diversity always means just more white women? I don't know. Just seems to always work out that way, doesn't it? Anyway, the Israeli Knesset, the main governing body of Israel, has passed a resolution 68-9. What is this resolution? They have totally rejected the concept of a Palestinian state of any kind, or any kind of two-state solution. They won't even think about it. They've just said it is not going to happen. Israel continues its bombardment of southern Lebanon, and they basically are eliminating Hezbollah commanders basically almost on a daily basis. And they just took out another one yesterday, and it's just it continues on. They just keep targeting these guys, and kablooey. Hezbollah is just continuing to rain rockets into northern Israel, and Israel continues to hit back by taking out commanders of Hezbollah. Also notable in Israel, Israeli Minister Ben Gvir makes a visit to Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount, angering Muslims worldwide. So now Jewish people can go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, but it's like they can't go into it or else they're unclean. So usually they kind of go outside of it to look at the outside. They don't go into it. Generally speaking, I don't know if he actually went into it, but Israelis and Jewish people are allowed to go into it, but they generally don't because it hasn't been cleansed, right? It's considered an unclean place for them religiously. So most of them don't do that. And that's why people are all talking about the red calf, right? The red heifer. If they slaughter that, they can then purify the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which they could then build the temple there, or they could just go into the mosque and pray in the mosque, because it's freedom of religion in Israel, so it's not like only Muslims can go in there. It's just that Jews don't want to go in there at this point. And the Muslims don't want them in there either, right? We also have news out there that President Biden has now tested positive for COVID, and he has disappeared. He's started to miss his events, like his speech down in Las Vegas, Nevada out there. Is it cover? Is it a delay of the inevitable? Or are they just trying to keep him out of view? Because he's not doing so well out there, is he? Or maybe he actually just got sick. I don't know. Hard to believe anything the government says these days, isn't it? Families of the 13 U.S. servicemen killed in Afghanistan during the withdrawal from the airport gave a moving address at the Republican National Convention, saying, "Biden has pushed us away and tried to silence us." They were also confronting Biden on claiming that no servicemen had died during his administration. Kind of big deal. Now, President Biden has been criticized on multiple occasions on not honoring veterans, repeatedly checking his watch while watching caskets return from overseas on multiple occasions. Like not once at one occasion, but multiple times at multiple occasions. And when he actually does pick up the phone and call families of those who have lost loved ones overseas, he usually brings up Beau Biden in conversations and starts trying to turn the thing around onto having them pity him. It's many families have talked about how kind of twisted that is, and yet he just keeps on doing it. In another Biden train wreck this week, Joe Biden forgot the name of a black man, so he just called him Black Man. Cringe. That's bad. But what's most concerning is the fact that this black man happened to be his Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. Your Secretary of Defense, who you should probably be meeting with, or at least speaking with, multiple times a day. The Secretary of Defense is kind of, not the most important person in the administration, but one of the two, okay? He blacks out on his name and just calls him Black Man. Now, it gets worse. It was on a BET, the Black Television Network, that this interview was happening on. So he's on BET with the black audience, with black interviewers, and he's there boasting about how great he is about diversity. And he's like, well, I appointed that black man as Secretary of Defense. Ooh. I guess to him, they all look the same, huh? It's hard not to just see the blatant racism through him. It's just look at it, who his friends were in the Senate and who walked him through things and their background. It's just unbelievable. He also forgot, in the same conversation, Supreme Court Justice Jackson's last name, who he appointed. Another person that's kind of important, kind of a big deal. The person you appoint to the Supreme Court, kind of the important person, that one of the most, that one of the officers in your administration that you meet with the most. Kind of good to know their names. Now, I get it if you know their first name and you just get used to calling them that, and then you kind of stumble on their last name or something like that. But to just completely forget their whole name, just their skin color is all you can remember is not a good look. Not a good look. Meanwhile, Putin is, let's just go over there. Meanwhile, Putin is giving central bankers access to carrying their own submachine guns. Which why does it just sound like they're having more fun over there? Now, it used to be just people for the central bank that were actually carrying bags of money could carry guns. Now, bank deputy chairs, their advisors, branch managers, as well as department directors can now acquire and carry pistols or submachine guns. We have the leading Trump Russia hoax propagandist Max Boot, who was out there trying to expose President Trump as a Russian asset. Well, there's a little turn of the tables today. His wife just got indicted for being a foreign spy. Who could have seen that one coming? What's with all these high-profile Democrats dating spies? That's a good question. We should look into that one. She previously worked for the CIA, but then defected and started working as a double agent for Korea to steal information from the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations. Ooh, the hypocrisy of him calling out Donald Trump as a Russian asset is beyond the pale, because at the very same time his wife was working as a foreign asset for Korea. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's not even talking about Fang Fang. Remember her? Yeah. Federal prosecutors are now dropping J6 obstruction charges. That was the big thing that they were using as the hammer to smash all of these people because they're obstructing. Of course, we've pointed out, and everyone else keeps pointing out, the fact that the obstruction charge that they keep bringing up was in Enron legislation. Like after Enron blew up, they passed a law to say you can't destroy records and stuff like that that are being subpoenaed by the government. Well, tucked in there was this little paragraph, and the Democrats have been like, hey, let's use that paragraph to just, throw people behind bars for disrupting a proceeding. And of course, that disruption of the proceeding was really talking about destruction of evidence, particularly in financial cases. So how does this apply? Well, the Supreme Court came out and said it doesn't apply unless they destroy evidence. And so now the prosecutors out there are pulling back those obstruction charges because they realize that they are completely abusing the law. And those who have been previously convicted under these charges are now filing their appeals. And yeah, that's going to be a whole big thing. We've been saying that they have been abusing the law to use the law as a weapon against everyone they don't like. And now it's being borne out in the court system. Costco out there is now selling doomsday buckets. Prepping is clearly going mainstream. Now, that's not a recommendation to go out and buy their bucket or whatever. I still think My Patriot Supply is the best bucket service. If you want like a full bucket service, My Patriot Supply is the best, most cost-effective way to go. I recommend them above anything else. They're always down in the description down below. I'll put them down in the pinned comment. But I still recommend doing it yourself. I recommend doing it yourself. You save a ton of money. Just get the 5-gallon buckets, build them out yourself with rice and beans, and it's just way, way cheaper. And honestly, a lot of stuff in these buckets that come from these companies is not really all that to brag about. I mean, you're better off taking boxes of mac and cheese apart and putting them into Mylar and just doing it that way. Like, you'd save a whole ton of money, and honestly, it probably tastes better anyway. That's my opinion on it. Is it right? I don't know, but it's my opinion. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has just ruled in favor of election integrity. What? Ninth Circuit? Okay, we'll take it. We'll just take it. Well, voters in Arizona filed that they should only. It was the state that actually did this. They passed a law that basically, if you don't prove your citizenship when you register to vote, they're going to reject your application, which seems like a no-brainer, right? Well, the powers that be came out and decided that that was unacceptable. Well, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said, no, that's actually legal. That's very reasonable. Go for it. So apparently they're allowed to start doing that again. Moving over across the ocean, let's look at a couple things overseas. Unrest in the UK, in the city of Leeds, where people who identify as Muslims, or just people, What are we supposed to say on that, Matt? I mean, they're all Muslims. But anyway, they set fire to vehicles and overturned a police car, set fire to a bus, general mayhem, including stones thrown at officers and just bystanders too. Just another normal day in the new UK with all their wonderful immigrants. Anyway, riots in Bangladesh, speaking of Muslim riots, where 19 are now dead. Bangladesh is most notable for having a large Muslim population and being on the border with India. The government has now cut internet countrywide. 169 million people suddenly without communication or voice. That's about half the population of the United States crammed into this little tiny little postage stamp. That's Bangladesh. Extremely overpopulated and extremely poor. Major issues happening there. Almost 24 freedom movements in the French colonial holdings have agreed to join together in what they are calling International Front for Liberation of Last French Colonies, because apparently the French still have colonies, and that's weird. Well, they had a two-day meeting in Azerbaijan, capital of Baku. These holdings are in the Caribbean, Corsica, Melanesia, Polynesia, and they include the actively revolting New Caledonia that we've been hearing about in the news out there. So a lot of the French colonial resistance to France is getting organized, and that's kind of a big deal. But you won't hear that on any of the mainstream media out there at all. Partially because they're a French NATO, they're a NATO ally and everything like that. But all right, we just bring it to you straight. You do with it as you please. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you are subscribed. And if you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of The Poplar Report, out.